Welcome to the Prowler Podcast. Today we're thrilled to have Jacob Borden with us and ready to dive into his college and professional journey in football while also shedding light on his experiences at Danville High School, where he is the recruiting coordinator and strength and conditioning coach, and talk about his recruiting journey coming out of high school, where he went to high school at Hatton High School in Town Creek, Alabama. And Jacob brings a unique perspective to the table due to also being a current coach and recruiting coordinator, for Danville High School, and where he had professional experience for 6 years. So without further ado, let's turn it over to Jacob as he introduces himself and shares more about his background.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Jacob Borden over here. I'm the current recruiting coordinator and strength and conditioning coach at Danville High School. I come from Hatton. I was blessed enough to get an athletic scholarship to go and kick at Faulkner University in Montgomery, Alabama. And I'm excited to be here and answer any questions or any topics that we got ready for it.
So Jacob, we kind of try to inform these kids on what to do coming out of high school. Talking to coaches, getting recruited. Can you walk us through the steps you took in high school to increase your chances of being recruited?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a little bit of a late bloomer, so I've got a little bit of a unique story. I did not actually start until my senior year. Like, I played football my whole life, but when I got to varsity, I didn't get to play very much until I was a senior. So what I did, I actually started using a recruiting platform called NCSA, stands for National Collegiate Scouting Association. And they kind of, walked me through tips about being proactive with coaches. And the main thing that I would really tell the kids is, let's say, John Doe is a really good quarterback for whatever high school. Nick Saban, Kalen DeBoer, any college coach does not know who John Doe is unless John Doe reaches out to them usually. So they don't even know that they're a person alive, breathing air until they at least send an email, go to a camp, something like that. So what I did, I probably sent thousands of emails over the summer alone. It would be colleges of all levels, probably within 6 to 8 hours of me, somewhere fairly close to home. I'd email them, tell them about myself, any film that I had, I'd send that. I would really say going to camps and being seen too is a good thing. And like I said, being proactive with the emails, any recruiting questionnaires on their websites online, doing that as early as the 9th, 10th grade, really getting the ball rolling. I'd say that's what would be the way to go.
Right, and you always have to reach out to these coaches, like you said. They aren't going to know who you are unless you're reaching out. Keeping your profile updated with your film, your stats, every single game. After every single game, just go ahead and get your game highlights ready, post them, and send them out to all the coaches that you have been talking to or reaching out to. And like you said, go to all the camps you could go to. What strategy did you take at the camps? Like, what did you do to make sure that you were seen at these camps and, did the best you could?
I just try to go out there and do my thing, to be honest, man. I didn't do anything too fancy. I think I went to 3 camps my senior year, and, I didn't really know a lot. I didn't know the camps I was supposed to be going to. So, like, I went to Alabama's camp, which for the experience was cool. Should not have went there. I was not good enough to play there. It just is what it is. It was a fun experience, though, getting to be around those guys. I went to probably the most beneficial one. This wasn't even a recruiting camp. It was Mike King's camp. He used to be the kicking coach at UNA. That's actually who taught me how to kick. And I learned the most at that camp. It really wasn't good for recruiting unless it was at UNA. And at the time, I was kind of borderline if I was good enough to play there or not either. But the most part, no, I went and tried to display my best talents. I did go to a Faulkner camp, actually, where I, signed with. It was a speed camp, and I went there because I'd ran track. And, I guess I might have showed enough there to kind of pique their interest in following up with my film, It's kind of how it went for me.
Right, and so you said you went to Union College in Kentucky. It was an NAIA school. And did you go to two NAIA schools or?
Yeah, Faulkner's
Yeah.
NAIA.
Oh, Faulkner's NAIA then.
Yeah, so I went to Faulkner from 2014 to 16. Then, I finished my undergrad at North Alabama. And somehow I still had eligibility in the NAIA through COVID and through the hours that I took. Like, there was a few semesters I wasn't a full-time student. And the NAIA, that actually gives you credibility back. So I still had some eligibility at 27 years old. I actually played at Union this past fall in 23.
Oh, wow. So you started at Faulkner.
I did.
And
I
then
did.
last fall, you that's wild. So, what's the transfer experience like in the NAIA? So it's kind of like a transfer experience, going from Faulkner to Union. So
Or did you even have to transfer anything
yeah,
after that amount of time? Or did the NAIA even require anything to be transferred?
Oh yeah. Even with it being 9, 10 years later, yeah, they still had to see all my transcripts. I mean, I had a whole bachelor's degree going to Union, and they had to see all my credits from every college I attended.
That's pretty,
wow,
that's
that's
pretty cool.
pretty crazy. So how old
Yeah.
are you now?
I'm 28 years old now.
28 years old. Wow. So you still had 1 year, one season left of
I
eligibility.
did. The way that it worked out with COVID and like 2 semesters at UNA, I couldn't get 12 credit hours. It didn't use that eligibility against me, so I got it back.
So
That's pretty cool.
what kind of challenges did you face doing that? 8 to 10 years later, what how'd you get back to where you were?
So, in my opinion, I never truly got back to where I was. Like I could kick a lot farther when I was at Faulkner, but I feel like I was mentally and technically more sound now, just over years of doing it more. Because I mean, I'd been playing semi-pro ball in between. It wasn't the exact same. It wasn't the same rigorous, training and all that. But it was challenging, especially in fall camp, practicing twice a day. Actually had a few injuries pop up because of that. But I had a great training staff. Sorry. And they made sure I was healthy and was able to play and all that. It was definitely full of challenges, though, man. I said that.
Yeah, that's
I
like one of
bet.
those movie things, like you go from playing college ball when you're in your young 20s, and now you're in your upper 20s, and you have to go back and compete with all these other young kids that like are in their prime. And so I can definitely see how that can be challenging. But it seems like you had a great time there, and you got through it, and it shows these kids, never to give up. And so let's go
But
to
back to the camp thing real quick, because I want to see what Jacob's opinion on it is. I always advise my athletes that come through my system to always kind of stay towards college camps, right? That are sponsored strictly by college camps. What do you think about these, U.S. Army Bowl combines and these recruiting services you see that put on by like Rivals and stuff? What's your take on, advice on which one should a kid attend?
So if it's a kid, it really relates to skill level, in my opinion, because
I
I'm
agree.
be honest, the bigger ones, if you're good, you're good. If you're that good, you're that good. You got to be a little realistic with yourself. Most kids, I would say go, an NAI D3, maybe D2 camp, because that's the ones that are going to give you the most attention. Because those big ones, if you're not the best guy there, they're probably not going to give you much attention or remember your name.
Yeah, that's what I tell athletes is if you don't get an invite from that school to go to the camp, don't go. Because the invite means you're on their radar for some reason, right? So that's why I always advise them don't go unless you receive an invite. I mean, and if you are receiving D1 invites, then maybe we can trickle in another couple, schools in there that you would like to go show out, try to show your skills at to see if you can get attention. But otherwise, if you're not getting the D1 attention, there's no reason to go to them, So
You also got to be careful though, because when I was in high school, some of these colleges are just sending out spam invites. Like it is, like you think it's an invite, but it's not. And I was like, oh look, I got an invite when all my other teammates got one. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't really make me feel really confident that they just wanted me to come. So you got to be careful with that. These bigger camps like Rivals and all that stuff, you have to be invited.
Correct.
You have to be invited. Like all the kids going there are like 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars. It's like
correct,
so
but I feel like there's a difference in invitation. Like if you receive it from a coach through X, then I feel like there's a little bit more.
it's a little more personal that way. If you have been talking to the coach over the phone, getting recruited, and he invites you to the camp, yes, obviously go to it. But if it's some school you never even heard from before, or like some school you never even reached out to before,
Correct.
it's definitely it's a spam invite, and they're just trying to get either money or something else. So I mean, it's always a good opportunity to go, showcase your skills, and maybe you end up with something. But you, like Preston said, if you're not invited, don't go, because you really, like you said, you have to be the best player there at these big schools. And if you aren't, you're not getting looked at much. You're not getting talked too much.
Right.
So switching over to your professional journey. So you said you played at the South Carolina Cowboys?
In the Middle Tennessee Bulldogs.
In the middle, yeah. So the Middle Tennessee Bulldogs were in the Arena Football League, right?
They were going to be
And-
in the AAL, and then we were going to change down to the EIF, but COVID happened, and we ended up canceling the season because of it.
Right. And then the South Carolina Cowboys, how was that?
Man, I'm going to be honest, it was rough because it was a lot of me and my teammates from semi-pro that were getting the opportunity to take the jump up. Now, it wasn't that we were sorry or nothing, but it was a whole new world to us, man. It was professional football. Like the first game we played against the Charlotte Thunder. They were owned by like 3 former NFL guys, and they played in a really nice coliseum. And they were pretty good, man. They whooped us pretty bad, I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, all these we've talked about this on other podcasts, but all these pro football teams, they're the real deal. Like Marcus Carradine, he's in the Fan Control Football League, and who played in there? Johnny Manziel played in the Fan Control Football League. Terrell Owens even went back and played in the Fan Control Football League. Marcus actually raced Terrell Owens, I guess, and he said Terrell beat him, right, Preston?
Yeah, he did.
But all these guys talking about all these like pro teams that aren't the NFL, they always say they had a good time, and it's the real deal. Like you don't think it's the real deal because it's not the NFL, but these are good players going to these pro football teams, and people think that you can just go play pro like if it's not the NFL, but that's really not the case. And so it's pretty impressive that you went and played at the South Carolina Cowboys and had a good time there and did good there. So, but going back, what has the transition been like from playing football to being a coach now and a strength and conditioning coach and a recruiting coordinator? How was that, that transfer over?
It's kind of been a weird in a way because like I said, I've been blessed to play even up to 28 because I was just playing in the spring until I re-injured my knee. So I would say it's been pretty cool. It's been a blessing because you get to stay around the sport. One day whenever I am truly done playing, it's going to be fine with me because I still have the whistle. And it's been a blessing, man, especially getting to see some kids that kind of struggled the same way that I did. And, it kind of reminds me that, I struggled to be a better coach for them now. I didn't understand that when I was 15 and 16, but now I do.
It's true.
Right. And so what are some things you've noticed like during your time as a recruiting coordinator, like specifically in terms of what collegiate coaches look for?
Mm-hmm. So first, they want to know your grades, obviously.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
You're not gonna, invest in an Escalade, and you can't even get it because of, some housekeeping issue. Same thing, man. If they're giving you an $80,000 scholarship over 4 years, why would they even give that to you if you got a 1.9 GPA? They're looking at that. Obviously, they're going to look at your tape. They want to see you in person too. Like a lot of coaches tell me, hey, I want to see you at camp in person competing. I want to see that you're serious enough to come up here and show me what you got in front of my own eyes. Sometimes, depending on the coach and the level, they may look at things like size, like, how hot or like how tall you are, how long your arms are, how built you are. Some like the NAI schools don't as much. They like it, but they can still appreciate like the 5'8" DB. That's a really good athlete,
Mm-hmm.
Right. As a coach, I've been asked what kind of kids they are, like do they make their bed up, just how they are as a person day to day outside of football. So, yeah.
Right. When the coach is recruiting you, they look at all those aspects, Is he a good kid, not only on the field, but off the field? How is he as a person, Grades are one thing, your skill is one thing, but it comes a lot with it.
And I also feel like, with the transfer portal nowadays, and now this is only for like the D2 and D1 level of NCAA. If you are a high school athlete and you got those issues, that they might shuffle you down and you might not find your spot at that level. You might have to go start off at D3 and work your way up, or go to a JUCO and work your way in. It's just the new nature of things because we see it every year. Transfer portal at the D1 level, is shuffling players all around internally and pulling from D2 level, and we don't really see many high school recruits making a point anymore, or like a name for themselves until like the second or third year. Prime example is that defensive end for Tennessee this year. Nobody has a clue who he is. We haven't seen much footage of him, but he's a junior, supposed to be a first round draft pick, and he's finally getting a chance, but everybody's praising him because he's stuck to the system. So it's just one of those examples.
Right. It still shows that loyalty exists in college football. It shows that you can go to a program and get developed instead of this. And if you're not starting, all these kids really just want to transfer, go play somewhere. But if you stick to it, you'll be developed. And now Preston, like Preston just said, he's going to be a first round draft pick. He's projected to be. So that's pretty impressive. But Jacob, what steps do you take to help your athletes get recruited? Like, how do you advise them to present themselves when they're talking to a coach or like even off the field?
So first things first, like for example, like if a coach comes to a school, I always remind them like, hey man, you don't need to be wearing your slides at school. You don't need to be dressing like a slouch. Like you need to dress yourself so that first impression is something that coach will remember you by. So just as far as that goes, I tell them to get on Twitter because it's the breeding ground. I've talked with a lot of coaches on there and, help facilitate a lot of offers that way. Definitely keep the social media clean. No nonsense, nothing about violence or anything degrading to women, anything like that, because they're not going to recruit you because of that. So pretty much I tell them to be themselves within reason, no silliness, just, be professional to the point about it. When they got their info on Twitter, I tell them keep it in the bio, your link, your height, weight, grades, where you're from, position, all that. I also tell them to have a pin tweet with that on there. And, ultimately I tell them just don't overthink it because they're like a coach is a coach. He's a person just like us. You ain't got to overthink how you talk to him, but at the same time, you don't just talk any way to him. Like you talk to him like in a professional sense.
Right. Talking about that, like with Preston, so he has options. These like he can revamp your Twitter for like the different prices. And what's so good about the Prowler is it's a recruiting service that does all the work for you. And so, like you said, Preston puts all the height, weight, highlights, all the key factors to get recruiting in your bio on Twitter. And everything else on the Twitter is going to be about sports, nothing else. It's going to be your highlights. It's going to be, all the pros about you and what can get you recruited.
Yeah, because when you buy into the Prowler, so we have state packages, and when you buy into the state package, you're pretty much granting us access to your X and your Gmail. We're going to clean that all up because that's what when you sign on with us, that's what we're stating, that there's not going to be any other, information on your X or Twitter anymore that is other than sports, right? Because as you just said, Jacob, X is a heavy ground for recruiting. It's a easy platform to get contacted with, easy way to get spotted, because everybody lives on X pretty much. Everybody wants to follow, what's going on in the Olympics right now, what's going on in the baseball trading world right now, because it's two big hot topics right now, and that's flooding everybody's X feed, and that's where they can see all the most up-to-date information. So what better place to connect with a coach than right there, So you want to make sure you got your hygiene on your X as clean as possible, because if that coach flips over there and sees you got, some party video on the very first one, he's going to be like, yeah, this kid, that first impression is out the door then, So it's things like that when we bring a kid on as a Prowler athlete, we try to make sure they're going to have their best stance, even if they got some issues behind the closed door, we're going to at least present them as well as we can. And then it's up to the coach to find out that information. So,
and then he developed this AI tool to where it develops messages for all these players and sends out to coaches, and makes it a lot easier on these players, to get recruited. And if you're an athlete now in today's world, why not do it? I mean, you're paying more money for NCSA to, I don't want to say not do anything for you, but I feel like with Preston and the Prowler, it's a lot more personal, and it does a lot more. It does a lot for you and more for you in a way. But
I agree with that.
Because at the end of the day, Jacob, you said you use NCSA coming out of high school. What benefits did you see in it? Because the feedback I'm hearing from my athletes that have used it, that switched to me, is that if they're not on there doing the legwork, there's not really coaches reaching out to them. So it's pretty much just like X. It's like you got to still reach out to coaches. Is that right? Or
so I don't feel like they did a whole lot to help me, especially with how much they charged. I'll say I think the best benefit was like having like a map showing like where all the schools were in the state, and you could get that with the free account back then. I don't know what it's like now because that was 2013 when I had it. Overall, I'll say this though, I don't feel like they helped that much. Like I said, especially what they charged. So something like what you're doing, I think it's way more beneficial.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, our first package started off with that 1 to 6 state package, but you're going to pick the states that goes in that package. When you pick those states, we populate D1, D2, D3, NCCAA, NAIA, and JUCO schools all in that sheet for you. And it's going to have all the contact information for them. Now, that contact that's going to be listed in there is most likely going to be the recruiting coach, or sometimes can be your position coach. Because if it can't find the recruiting coach or coordinator, it's going to go to that your position coach is second. So when you fill out our questionnaire, it's going to ask for a lot of generic information that AI tool will pull when it populates that spreadsheet, which is also where it creates a player profile introduction message out of that it sends off to coaches first. So
It's a pretty sweet deal then, it sounds like.
Yeah, I just feel like like even in high school, I was about to do NCSA, and I was like, my dad and I talked about it. We're like, and no, we can do all this stuff ourselves. If
Yeah.
the way the guy was talking, that we talked to. But the thing with Preston is he's gonna do all the work for you.
You know, where I kind of came up with this idea is actually from my brother. I was fresh out of college. He was a senior. I just moved back home. It was kind of COVID period, still. So I saw the difficulties of him getting recruited, and I was like, I got a computer science background. I actually did a capstone on a software similar to this. I was like, let me see if I can tailor it to benefit him. And boom, it created into a company about 3 years later. So,
Wow.
I mean, it opened up doors for him too, as we all know. And he actually just rejoined it, but due to complications with inside the family, he was going to transfer and play at community college in California, but he chose to stay here for another year or so.
Yeah. But Jacob, these kids need to realize that they need to, reach out to coaches if they aren't with us. If Preston, explain your packages that you have.
So the state packages, it contains everything. You go up from 1 to 6 to 7 to 14 to 20 to 40 and then 40 to 51. That covers the whole United States, right? But if you go up to that 40 to 51, you don't have to pick the 51 states. You can leave a couple states out if you want to, because not everybody wants to go play in Alaska. They do got football teams, but it's probably going to be pretty cold, right?
Right.
So, not everybody might want to go play up there. So we give the choice to the athlete. Once they pick what states they want, then that spreadsheet is populated. They will get access to view it in the PRS database. Now, that PRS database, all they will be able to see, they won't be able to edit. They'll just be able to see when it highlights green. That's mean we would make contact with that school. When it highlights itself red, that means that they've offered you. And then once it highlights red, that system automatically populates an offers tab that you can go see what schools you've been offered at. Like last year, I had an athlete at West Morgan, actually. He was a safety, West Bradford, Jacob. He was my very first Prowler athlete, actually, too. He came on with 0 offers at the beginning of his senior year. And I think it was like 2 weeks before the first game. He finished the season with almost 22 offers.
Wow.
Yeah. And that ranged from the D2 level to NAIA.
That's
Pretty
awesome.
crazy on what Preston's developed can do for a high school athlete. And we're starting to grow to more sports. We started off mainly football, right? Football's the best sport ever, right? So you got football, and then you got baseball we're developing into, and then basketball, and and we're starting to, maybe even get to lacrosse one day. All these athletes in high school, they need to come to the Prowler, and they need to get their, offers and go play college ball. So, speaking on college, Jacob, with the transfer portal and seeming like free agency, but mainly NIL, how can this be challenging for a young high school athlete to maneuver, with the new world of transfer portal being wide open and, all the people money grabbing really and all this stuff. But, what are your thoughts on that?
I think for the vast majority of kids, they see all the flash, and it's like rat poison, if we're being honest, because it goes back to something I said earlier. You got to be realistic about how good are you. if you went D3 and you're undersized and you hit the portal, they're not going to be looking for you, point blank period, unless you just get lucky and you were that good and you were overlooked before. They're probably not looking for you. Even like the schools at your level, whether it's D3, NAIA, D2, they're looking for D1 bounce backs. So you got to be realistic about, if I leave here, am I going to get to play somewhere else? Or as far as the NIL goes, now, anybody can technically get NIL money, even like some of the NAIA athletes. Like we had like a meeting at Union that came in, they put every single Union athlete in this meeting. And they talked about how some of the NAIA athletes actually had some pretty decent little deals. So, that's not out of the realms of impossible. It's very possible if you market yourself right. And some of that's to do with talent, like how good are you? Because obviously they want a good player to represent them. And then how are you going to present yourself too? What value can you bring? Like, hey, I'm going to promote you. I'm going to do this, this, and this for your business. Ultimately, I'd say the challenges is getting caught up in it, because just the reality is most kids aren't good enough to get all the luxuries.
Right. And I think NIL is great in a way. They need to put some limits on it. Like, it's great that these players are getting paid to play college ball. But a lot of this stuff needs to be limited, because people are leaving schools to go to other schools because they're getting more money there. And it's like, well, that doesn't really leave much loyalty in the college like football atmosphere anymore. And so I think there needs to be a lot of limits on it. Transfer portal is totally different. It's pretty crazy how it's just wide open. You can basically go anywhere, every single year you can transfer, go somewhere else. And there's nothing wrong with that. I agree. Like, if you're wanting to transfer to follow your coach because they're going somewhere else, and if you don't fit in at the right program, I think it's great. You can hit the portal, go somewhere else that you fit in better at. There needs to be set limits on it in a way, though. So it needs to be more, restricted in a way. But
I agree.
so with the new NFL kickoff rule, Jacob, where the kicker will kick off from the 35, but his teammates will be on the 45. How can this impact kickers, or do you think it will have an impact on them?
It definitely changes it, because it's no longer just boot the ball into the end zone or try to, hit a sky and force them to return it from 2 or 3 yards deep in the goal line or in the end zone. It definitely adds a little more value to it, I think. And you may see some guys like the Chiefs have a reserve kicker. I can't remember his name, but he plays safety, and he's got a leg on him. He actually kicked some in preseason. It kind of brings some values to guys like that, if they have to be a safety valve or go down and tackle.
Yeah.
Right. And it's definitely going to allow for more kickoff returns. I think that's what they were aiming for.
Yes.
I think it's definitely going to allow that. And the kickers are definitely going to have to adjust to it, because they're going to be in there too. They're going to be, they're going to have to beef up a little bit. They're going to have to, they're going to be trying to be making tackles out there. And you usually see the videos. I've seen like one video, that's it, of a kicker laying somebody out.
Well, because what's going to be wild is that pretty much, the return team and the kickoff team is going to be 10 yards apart, right? Except for the kicker and the 2 return men. So, like,
I think it's only one guy back there returning.
Is it 2 or 1?
I think it's 1.
It might be. I don't know. It's just like the UFL or whatever their role is for kickoffs. It's pretty much the exact same role. But I think I'll be real curious to see what scope kicks and stuff look like out of this. So it'll be real interesting.
We'll see what happens. I think it's definitely it's only a 1 year it's voted in for 1 year.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't do well this year, then they're going to get rid of it and go back to the regular. I think it's just taking away the tradition of football. Like the football we know, it's like, what's going on? Oh, they're changing, like the hip drop tackle, all that. Like, that's football. You're tackling somebody. Yeah, you may get injured doing it, but I mean, it's not. What if that's the only way you can tackle? Like, what? What are you just gonna let them score? No.
Right.
And so I don't know. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. I don't know what their goal is with that. I guess prevent injury, but I don't think it's going to prevent much injury. It's just going to prevent more. Allow more points. So we'll see what happens.
Do you think would you like that rule, Jacob, if you were playing the NFL as a kicker?
I think so, because I've never been the big leg guy. I've been the accurate kind of fundamental guy. No, not. I mean, when I was at Faulkner, my longest field goal was from like 55, and I could kick off to the goal line, maybe a few yards deep if I hit it good. I think for me, I would like it better because it puts more of an emphasis on someone that doesn't have the strong leg. It's more so about the placement and the hang time in that regard. So I would have probably loved that, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You may have been at the Broncos right now. Cowboys kicking off. But,
that'd be awesome.
Yeah. But you got anything else to add, Preston, Jacob? Anything else?
No, I think those are some good points today.
All right. Well, thank everyone for tuning into the Prowler Podcast. We look forward to continuing to expand your awareness of our platform, and we look forward to partnering with those who are serious about playing their sport at the next level. So, it's our weekly quote. Today, I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can accomplish what others can't. Jerry Rice, best receiver of all time. But on our upcoming podcast, we will have more active players and coaches and former coaches and players. And so we look forward to seeing you next week. And Jacob, thank you for coming on and sharing your insight on everything you've done and continue to do. And so as always, Prowler up, and we'll see you all next week.
For sure.
So,
Thank you, Julia.
Thanks for having me.